I'm sure you guys will be happy to hear that the Mooda drama is not over. I didn't really want to cover more on this, but people kept asking me over and over and over again to react to the Fett videos, so I asked Fett for the matches that he reacted to them myself, gave you guys my thoughts on whether Mooda is still cheating or not, or if he is cheating in general. And I kind of analyzed it from the point of view knowing that he only has 60 hours in the game and is playing in champ ranked. To start things off, I go over all of the very typical excuses that a lot of his fanboys are using and why they don't really make sense. But if you want to just specifically watch the matches, I have timestamps below. You guys are aware, last week I tweeted out about Mooda saying that he was cheating because I saw a clip on Reddit. Then I replayed or rewatched the entire match and I was like, probably not cheating. It was just probably a very lucky shot. And then since I've made that video, a lot of other content creators have also hopped on investigating Mooda. And then on top of that, his own teammates, his own group that he's been playing with has been sending in match replay files to different content creators accusing Mooda of cheating. These are 3 matches that I got Fett to send to me that someone else sent to him. So we're going to go over a few things before we watch them. Every time anyone talks about Mooda, there's a million of his defenders who refuse to ever believe he could ever do anything wrong. And I go over some of the, I guess, most common defenses that a lot of his fanboys have been using. The very first one, which will make a bit more sense once we actually watch the matches. I think the biggest defense that a lot of his viewers have used is that he is intentionally trying to make it look like he's cheating to farm clips. So whenever he lines someone up through a wall, whenever he aims towards someone, they're like he's doing that on purpose to trick people into thinking he's cheating. This is a very common thing that a lot of Siege creators do, but they have a lot of knowledge. They know, based off audio, based off map knowledge, blah, 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 where someone's going to be. And we do it a bunch of times where we aim at the wall, oh, we're tracking, and then we kill them. And maybe 1 in every 20 instances of doing that, you actually see someone and kill someone. We'll watch as the matches go on, but he does it way more frequently. Also, the reason why that argument kind of falls flat is because Mooda self-admits that he does not really know the game that well. He has very few hours in the game overall. So, in order to pull off consistently fake, cheating clips, you'd have to have fairly good knowledge of the game. If he even admits that he does not really know the game, and he also doesn't play the game that much, or never played the game that much before, how can he do that? Which leads into the second defense that a lot of people use. They say, Mooda's lying about how many hours he has in Siege. He actually has thousands of hours, which is just pure made up shit on their end, where they're like, yeah, this guy has secretly been playing Siege for years, mastering the game, spending thousands of hours on it to learn it, and then he's just pretending to be a noob. I'm like, that's just making shit up. At that point, if you believe that, there's no argument to be had in any of this because you're not going to believe anyone. If you can make up something like that and truly believe it, what's the point of even trying to talk about this? So we're just going to move past that point. And then the third thing I want to talk about, which doesn't necessarily pertain to him, but pertains to other content creators. The reason why I want to go over the matches myself is because I know other content creators have gone over the matches as well, and they have their own conclusions. I don't want to watch their conclusions because I don't want to have any bias from them. The reason I say that is because I feel like a lot of content creators are giving Mooda a lot of slack in general, because 1, he's a creator, and 2, because they want to collaborate with him. Because they want to, I don't want to say mooch, but they want, to get some of his viewers over to them. Same thing as any other large content creator. They will want to do what they can to work with a larger creator because it benefits them. And the reason why I bring that up is because I feel like from some of the clips I have seen, if you showed any content creator these clips and that account and didn't tell them who it was, 99% of the time they would say this person is cheating 100%. I have seen a lot of the reports that some of these creators have made for cheaters with substantially less proof, and they believe someone is cheating. So I feel like a lot of them are willing to look the other way in hopes that they can benefit off of the viewership, which is, again, why I don't want to look at anyone else's take on this, because I want to look at it as unbiased as possible. And I know people in chat and in the comments will probably say I am biased because they say I have a hard-on for like hating Mooda or whatever. I don't really care who it is. At the end of the day, I think we can all agree my known for role in the Siege community is the hacker replay guy. I'm the one who looks at matches, determines if someone's cheating or not, and that's about it. If someone comes into Siege and is suspicious, I'm going to look at it. I don't care who it is. I'm just going to look into it. With that being said, let's get into hacker replay, or the Mooda replay, or the Mooda files, whatever we want to call it. From my understanding, Oregon was the most suspicious match. All 3 of these matches were played in quick succession, and I believe these are all champ level lobbies. So again, remember that for the context of this, this was sent in by one of Mooda's own teammates, who thinks he could be cheating or like was suspicious of him. I find it weird because it is a champ level lobby, and Mooda has, I think at the time of this, he had like 70 hours playing in champ level lobbies and doing suspicious things. With 70 hours, you know, people have every right to be suspicious. I don't know why Oregon is split into 2. I'm assuming that it was a disconnect, but we'll see. Yes, it is Cool Hero. It looks like we're only going to see 1 kill here before they disconnect. And I assume it's Lou, who's the one who sent it into whoever. Also, okay, wait. I forgot to say one more thing before we start watching this. Because I know people have already been bringing it up a bunch. A lot of people were like, you know, it's confirmed that Mooda's not cheating because yesterday he 1v1 Jinxie with a monitor cam. And first off, like what Fett said in his tweet, he said the 1v1s, you know, they don't really mean anything. Anyone can look suspicious or not suspicious in a 1v1 because it's a 1v1. So he said how he plays in ranked tells a different story. And while I understand, you know, having a monitor cam is good, if he doesn't do it in ranked, then it doesn't mean anything to me. So cool that he did it for the Jinxie 1v1, but unless, again, he's doing it in ranked, and if he plays exactly the same in ranked with a monitor cam, then he's fine. But if he suddenly is just shitting the bed in ranked when he puts on a monitor cam, you know. I also know that the whole thing was that he was going to do a PC check, and then he said he didn't want to do it. So I know that was a big concern for a lot of people. I'm assuming this is about to just end randomly here because he's about to disconnect. So we learned absolutely nothing in round 1. And we're just going to go to the second file. Also, with the whole PC check, I still find it crazy how they tried to plan it. Again, this is always assuming the worst, but when they were like, we're going to do a PC check tomorrow, that's like telling your work that you're going to do a drug test in a week. It's like, well, what's the point of telling people? Kind of defeats the whole purpose, you know? You got to do it in the moment. I also understand the concern with PC checks. They are privacy, or very intrusive privacy-wise, so I can understand to a degree. I can't remember what exact rounds it was that were super suspicious, but I think it was on defense that a lot of people reviewed and were like, yeah, that's pretty sus. Let me just rewind this real quick. This is something that I saw a lot of people point out, which I tried to, again, avoid videos to not have any bias, but that was just like, you know, how normal people will aim at an angle before they swing so that they can shoot as fast as possible, get a kill, blah, blah. But then after he does it and no one's there, this is something that a lot of people had mentioned multiple times where they're like, he did kind of aim at the people right before he peeks, but that was still kind of lined up with the actual reinforcement corner. I'm curious how he deals with the clash, because Clash is notorious for being like a brand new player's worst nightmare. Oh, she's already dead. Doesn't matter. Seemed fine. I'd just say weird peaks because, like, from before when he's aiming, you know, right where someone's going to be, and then there he's just, like, aiming at the middle of the wall and spraying. But if you're in a 1v4 and you're a newer player, you're going to be overwhelmed and be like, I don't know what the fuck to do. For being a new player, he has way too much confidence. Well, that's also the thing, is a lot of people try to defend it by saying, well, he's new, but he plays a lot of Valorant and stuff. But it's like, we've had pros from other games come over to Siege, and most of them are terrified or unsure of what to do because it's just overwhelming. So have a creator come over, again, who's not a pro, and just know exactly where to go, blah, blah. People get suspicious because of that. He's already got pink ice? Okay. Forget the cheating accusations. This is rigged. Bro has pink ice? I wanted at least one pink ice, and instead I got red ice for the fucking M12 SMG. The worst SMG in the entire bundle. This was also, not this clip in particular, but this type of action he did was something that a lot of people kept bringing up. And again, his defenders would say, well, he's just pre-firing common angles. We'll have to go see if we can try to do the math of how many hours he has. But I feel like most people at, again, around 70 hours or less wouldn't necessarily know these angles right off the bat. That's also at 0.5 speed, so reacting that quickly, it could be just good reaction time, but these like common angles are only common because we all play the game a lot. And we know them. They're common because, you know, they're what we do. But again, a newer player would not know these common angles. They're just gonna like swing and be like, I don't know what to aim at, and then be lost. Did he just hip fire him as well? We're gonna run this in slow-mo to see. I'm pretty sure he couldn't see Legion at all, but he hip fired him. So he can't see him at all. Still can't see him at all. How much time would that be? I'm gonna have to watch it on 1 times. That's like enough time to react. That's fine. No, he does. Could be wrong. I think this is the one that shared and everyone was posting about. Unless someone was in overtime, I can't remember. I also did see the funny, rare funny tweet from Kudos where he said, everyone's saying like Mooda's cheating, Mooda's whatever. He's like, but no one's talking about how Mooda's a DMR crutch. I mean, I don't blame anyone for being a DMR crutch. I assume that was just based off audio. Because, yeah, he's sprinting up C4. That is 100% something you could just easily learn from any stack that would try to teach you the game. He did slowly follow the Blackbeard, but then he aimed somewhere completely irrelevant, so I'm going to assume that was just a coincidence. And he does it again here. People also have said, like, oh, if you watch anyone's match replay, you'll always get lineups like this. And it does happen. 100% it happens. But I would say, from my experience watching, how many would that be now? I think it's been almost 1,500 different hacker replay files because it's 250 times 6. We also did the special where I did 200, so it's like 1,700 hacker replay files over the last 5 years. You learn that when someone is, you know, not cheating, that on average, a lineup like that would maybe happen once or twice max in a match. So it's around 4. I don't think we'll count the Blackbeard one because it's like, you know, he didn't even shoot at him. The lineup with Capital, we'll give him that 1. It's like, you know, it happens. 100%. Because at any given time, when you aim at someone, or aim somewhere, you might hit, or you might line up with them. And the outlines just make it way more suspicious than it needs to be. Not trying to read too much into it, but at the end there when he's like running around, I think that's the thing that people bring up the most, is that there are times where it looks like he knows exactly like where people are, what to do, blah, blah. But then there's other times where it's just like he looks so lost. Like there at the end of the round, I'd say he looked lost. He looked like he had no idea where he could go, like what he could do. And then before that, he's frying people. That being said, you know, when people learn Siege maps, you do kind of learn it in parts. Oh, he left right around. Everyone will learn, like, you know, certain parts of the map, whatever is more played. So you could argue that he knows the barrow side a lot more because everyone pushes there, but he might not know freezer. Oh my god. This is a Peter level barbed wire. If you just move it a little bit more, it's better, but whenever I'm playing with Peter, I'm like, is this your barbed wire? He's like, yeah. I think it's because a lot of people, especially early on, forget that you can just punch barbed wire from around a corner. You need to make it in a spot where if you're going to punch it, they gotta be vulnerable. That's fuck me. I've been putting any of my shit down. Spoken like a true ranked teammate. Even aiming. Oh, I was gonna say now he's aiming at the door. What is that charm he has? Oh, a streamer charm, is it? Looks like a beaver with a baseball cap on. It's from The Boys. Oh. I don't remember that. A whole lot of nothing this round. Wait, is that obsidian? This is what we're left to review when nothing happens. The skins. Oh, so this does feel like 90% of my lobbies when I'm fighting for my life upstairs. And I'm like, guys, they're pushing me everywhere. Like, I'm being droned. I'm being shot through the wall. What do I do? And then you cut to my teammate, and they're just like, dun, 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 just sitting and holding nothing. I'm just like, guys, please, please, please. A very questionable decision, but that would more line up with being a newer player. That's Dokkaebi. How does he know that she's there? So everyone's getting calls, so you definitely would not be able to hear her footsteps because, like, Azami still has her phone call ringing, so does Sentry. So, like, the noises being this close would make it where you can't hear footsteps. She takes like 2 steps. kind of stops. He aims right at her. And then hits nothing. To go back to what I said earlier, I think for a lot of the creators who are like, oh, he's fine or whatever, I guarantee you, if you show them that clip, like 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, he's cheating. If you don't say who it is. And people are trying to say that it's because Dokkaebi was shooting, but people also don't realize that Dokkaebi shot from there, meaning that the lineup would have to be a little bit different than what he did. Because even though there is a hole there, he aims to the right of the hole, and he aims where she is now, not where she was before. So again, it's just small stuff like that. You're like, but then that's when usually the Mooda defenders come in and they're like, well, he's just faking it. He's making it look like he's cheating for clips. But it's like, that's not really how that works. Without having massive knowledge in the game, you can't really just consistently fake wall hacks. It doesn't work like that. That's the one benefit we have of Siege, is it is generally a lot easier to tell if someone is cheating at any point because of stuff like that. That's why Hacker Replay has been so successful. This was a normal reaction. You'd be able to hear Ace walking there because it's just on the other side of the wall. He doesn't even get the kill. Sentry does. Alright, now we go to overtime. I know it says round 6, but it's actually overtime because of the one disconnect round. So far, what is that now? 2 lineups through walls? So we're already at our limit. Again, I'd say normally in a match with a high-level player, maybe 2 instances of lining someone up through a wall when you don't intend to. I'm just going to keep skipping forward through prep phase because he still doesn't really seem to know what to do. Which I assume is because if he's with a stack, they're going to be like, just go kill people. Like, don't worry about site setup. Go operators who are easy and that you don't have to do anything with. Makes sense. I do the same thing. Okay, just for future reference, because it does show that he is the 4 ping. So if we see a 4 ping, it means it is from him. Also, just going to take a second to appreciate this Denari setup, because this is intense. So you do 3 here, 1 there, 2 here, 1 over here, and that covers freezer door, stairs, and blue door. Kind of crazy. A whole lot of nothing. Oh, shit's popping off. So this is the clip that I've seen. This is the one that people were posting everywhere saying super, super suspicious because of this. So let's watch that all back in slow-mo and I'll explain my thoughts. So I'm sure at this point, if we were to go back into their VODs, you'd probably be able to hear a lot of people, you know, being like, oh shit, freezer, main stairs, they're pushing everything, like panicked, whatever. So he aims over here to hold freezer. Normal. And then you see here in a millisecond, he's about to swing and pre-fire the Ash. Or not, it's not a 100% pre-fire, but it's very close because it's insanely fast reaction time. That's in slow-mo. But then on top of shooting the Ash like that, he keeps shooting and he keeps going over to the Dokkaebi. So we'll do it 1 speed so it looks more normal. Kind of crazy, but not out of the realm of possibility. For anyone who is a veteran FPS player in general, they'll know how to flick. Like Counter-Strike, Valorant, I want to say COD, but I don't think we give COD any credit there. But so he goes kill, flick over, hits the Dokkaebi, double kill C4, but then here is the most incriminating part. He shoots at Blackbeard through a wall. And I know people will try to defend and say, you'd be able to hear Blackbeard. It would be a call out. But from here, if you were to hear audio on Blackbeard, it would not sound super close. There's a big difference in audio in Siege between right next to you or like right in front of you versus over a cabinet on the other side of a wall. This would sound much more distant. If he were standing right here right now, you would hear that way more like as a close sound and you'd freak out. But he's already backed up. He's already walking away. And then Mooda tries to shoot at him through the wall. So again, if we're counting how many times he's lined people up through walls and stuff, this is now the 3rd time in one match. He shoots, realizes no one's here, and then just runs away. And then what I find interesting there, at least, again, this would be, overwhelming for any new player. But even though he knew that, or he suspected that someone was over here, he's holding that. But I would assume that would just be confusion from his teammate killing someone, and he's like, I don't know who's alive, who's dead. And then they win the round. So, I think a lot of people, rightfully so, are suspicious of that lineup on Blackbeard through the wall from here to there. And again, I think if you showed this to any content creator on a normal day of the week, and you said, do you think this person's cheating? 99% of the time they would say 100% he's cheating. They'd say he has walls and he has no idea where he actually is. He just thinks he's here, but he's actually over here. Especially when you couple it with the level. Again, content creators as a whole in Siege are very, very suspicious of a low-level player performing incredibly well, as we have every right to be because, cheaters run rampant in Siege. So, that's where I feel like there's a bit of bias. Creators look at that and they're like, no, he's fine, like, it's Mooda, it's fine. But it's like, in a blind test, they're probably going to say, no, he's cheating, and report him. Say it was me doing it, would you think I'm cheating? Well, no, because you're probably, like, in copper rank. But seeing as how this is in Champ Elo and it's a low-level account, again, you show that context to any content creator with that clip and they'd say 100% they're cheating. But the chatters who are hard-stuck copper, obviously, if you have that clip, we're not going to assume you're cheating because we're just going to think you're lost. But then you can make the argument that since he is newer, maybe he's lost. The issue is how inconsistent it is on when he seems lost versus when he's not lost. Because again, throwing back to, remember on round 3, I think it was, when he pushed in through small tower, or through big tower, shot at the guy on green hall, and everyone's like, common angle. I'd argue that in most cases on Oregon, this is a much more common angle, and he just, isn't sure where to aim. He shoots too far to left, then he flicks back and kills him. So it's like, when people say common angles, I'm like, he doesn't seem to know any of the common angles, or, at least not a lot of them. Because, Kitchen is a tertiary site that most people don't play because usually you lose one of the first 2 sites. So, that is not an angle people should be as familiar with since it is much less common. Meanwhile, this is the attic push is a way more common angle. He did aim at the Azami here, but actually, I don't really. This is now the 4th time he's aimed right at someone, but let's try to deduce why he would try to do this. Maybe he thought the Azami would be lower, like the Azami barrier. So he's trying to get an angle, and then he's like, oh, it's too high. But even if, again, common angle, if he is trying to push this and he knows common angles, he should know that he should be aiming over here. But instead he's aiming right at the Azami. So it's just, that inconsistency. In one situation, it's like, nope, common angle. Other one, it's like, oh, well, he just doesn't know what he's doing. It's like, it's got to be one or the other. You saw the guy by bunks. canceled the reload, one-tapped the Rooney in the head on the flank. And he did see this guy by the bunk bed. This is the only person that he, like, very clear as day saw on the drone. And he gets the kill. Again, when you add it all up, I think that was, so Azami, he aimed at the Ella at the end there through the barricade, or the bunk bed as well. And we had 3 other instances before that. So 5 instances in one match of him aiming at someone through a wall. When I think the average would be realistically 1 to 2. Maybe 3 in an overtime match. So he's already 2 above. And again, a lot of inconsistency between knowing common angles and not knowing common angles. And I would argue he, for some reason, seems to be much more familiar with the uncommon angles than the common ones, which makes 0 sense. Even if you have champ level players trying to teach you the game, they wouldn't teach you uncommon angles first, because then you're just going to die to the common ones. So, and I know people have been trying to argue like, oh, but he was an old player, blah, blah. I think from the account he played in like year 2. So this would all be pre-Oregon rework. So this would be a brand new map. But here's where we can do a little bit of research to determine, you know, how knowledgeable of the map should he be. So he's currently at 60 hours of playtime in Emerald 2. The easy way to determine how knowledgeable he should be on a map is how many times has he played Oregon, and when did he play Oregon here. So this was on April 11th. This was his 4th time ever playing Oregon in all playlists. So 4th time on a map ever. Should he know a lot of those angles? Probably not. But that being said, he did look a little lost as well. So it's like, again, inconsistencies. How can you struggle to learn like or know the layout of a map, but then know common angles, but then also forget those common angles? It's just, a lot of it doesn't make sense. Now, I would not say that it on its own says he's cheating, but when you start adding in a lot of other stuff, then it's like, okay, where do you draw the line? One more thing, I forgot. There were so many things I had to like go over at the beginning that I forgot about a bunch of them. So one of the most common defenses I've heard about him from both creators and from viewers is that people say, why would he risk his whole career when like he could get exposed for cheating and lose it all? I really don't see that as an argument for anyone ever anywhere, because you could look at competitive play in anything and people at the top always cheat. Like, it happens in everything. For example, we can even just use the Olympics recently as an example. In curling, Team Canada became a meme across the entire world because their captain or whatever, I don't know what they call them, was cheating. And that's in a global competition on the main stage in front of everyone, and he cheated. And then he's like, well, everyone else was cheating too. It happens. No matter at what level you're at, people will always cheat. And people will be like, oh, but like, what does he have to gain from it? I mean, I think if you look at everything that's happened over the last 2 weeks and how much his viewership has spiked up because of all these accusations, I think there's a lot to gain there. I don't think there's really much to risk as long as he's not blatant about it. But even to go on other examples, I know we mentioned this yesterday, because again, people are like, he's a huge creator. Why would he risk his entire career cheating? Dr. Lupo cheated in a chess tournament. I think it was for charity as well. And I'd say Dr. Lupo is a significantly larger creator than Mooda. So if he is able, or if he's willing to cheat in a chess tournament for charity that gains him absolutely nothing, and then he gets caught for it and admits that he's cheating, I don't really see that being a valid defense to say, why would he do it in Siege? It makes no sense. It's not to say that he is cheating, but that is just a terrible defense for him. It makes 0 sense. That was match 1. What we'll do is a little chat interaction. All right, chat. After watching Oregon, do you think he's cheating? Not cheating? Answer now. I'd say the hefty majority of chat says cheating. Maybe 90% say cheating. I'll reevaluate, or I'll get chat's opinion again after Border and then after Cafe. So this will also be the key thing here. We've seen how he plays on Oregon. Is this consistent? Is this going to be a common thing? Let's find out. I assume he is Useful Ruby because I know everyone else's names by now. I do also know, so one of them is Kane Atwood, who, I'll just say, over the last week, I've been sent clips by a lot of different people, of a lot of people accusing Mooda in different circumstances, and I know one of them was Kane, was showing other creators clips and being like, I don't know if he's legit, like, this seems way too suspicious. One of them was that Oregon clip, so, again, it does say a lot when your own team, or your own group, is like, he probably is cheating. It's not a good look. I'm still so fucking jealous of this pink ice. So right there, you can see a visible, like, educational moment where he realizes, like, oh shit, the wall's open. Oh shit, this is like, there's a zombie barrier back there. That was a genuine reaction. Okay, I'm gonna have to put on my, or turn off the outlines. I'm gonna have to fucking lean in for this. I could not see the class shield, but it was because of the outline, I think. Okay, you can already see 2 lines there. So I'm guessing he saw the 2 lines, realized he was looking at those 2 lines, is like, he's like, I think that's a person, but then pre-fires. I guess you would argue that as a newer player, since he doesn't really know Clash, he's not expecting it to be a bulletproof shield looking at him. I will say, watching newer players play against Clash is one of my favorite things in the world. It's a pretty normal round. Much more, what's the term I'm looking for, like, discovery than Oregon had as a whole. Where I feel like if you watch that, you can actually tell he's, like, learning. But in Oregon, it looked like he just knew. Also, oh no, he killed the guy who ran out. I was like, how did he get 2 kills? I forgot about the East Stairs run out. I can only imagine that in the voice call, they were like, whoa, watch out, there could be spawn peaks. And he's like, what? And then he just prone on the ground because he was terrified. That's like 90% of the lobbies I'm in with my friends who are newer to Siege. I'm like, watch out for spawn peaks. And they're like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And then they just prone out of panic. Guys, I can't believe they took our shield armory rush patent pending from Evan. It's good to know that my stack is so influential. Did he team kill there? See, it's stuff like this that it's like, where do you draw the line, and like at what point does it stop making sense? Where you saw there, he aimed right at the Goyo through the wall, missed his shots, and then team killed, and then like here, I feel like there's some weird gap in the mechanics where he scans and then he's just like, oh fuck, I didn't mean to fast forward. He scans and then like he's just hip firing because he's shooting way too early. So I'm like, so he's good enough to do a lot of the other stuff, but then he just still doesn't understand the timing of reloads. Again, going back to what we said before, it's all about, like, it's just inconsistent. I'm not even gonna bother looking at the droning because I don't think we really will learn anything from droning. That was also something else that I heard in his defense, for Mooda's defense, that yesterday, so he 1v1 Jinxie with a monitor cam on to show that he wasn't walling, and people were saying that he changed, that he went from never droning to droning all the time in that 1v1. And I was like, I don't agree, because I watched his 1v1 with Jinxie and he was droning all the time. I'm like, I doubt anything really changed there. So here, he does get shot at by the Aruni. Shotguns it open. He does aim at the Aruni through the wall. Once the door breaks, he realizes he's hitting the wall, and then he aims at the middle of the door before correcting to the corner. You could argue that that is him not knowing the map, as we've said before with other rounds. I mean, that does help him. Looking the wrong way, not sure what to shoot at. But then the people who are also, I don't want to say witch hunting, but who are very much against Mooda do claim that he toggles a lot. He didn't shoot. But this is one of those cases where we'll talk, or we've mentioned that, like, you know, you accidentally aim at someone through a wall. Like, I'd say that's like what a normal one looks like, where it's like, okay, if you had known someone was there, obviously you would have shot and killed them, but he doesn't know, so he doesn't shoot. But like, that would be a more normal one, where it's like, yeah, you're just aiming at somewhere, and then someone happens to line up with it. I think his teammate who ran out killed, oh, just one of them. Watch this part. He does aim at the, who is this? Ash? But you would assume, like, obviously someone just died here. They were pushing the door. You have every right to assume that you're going to aim towards the door. And that just looks like a typical, he doesn't realize that there's a vending machine in the way. And then the only suspicious part right there is that he does aim at, like, head level height, and then as Ace gets lower, he aims lower. Actually, oh no, he kind of stays low the entire time. So Ace kind of walks into his lineup. Like, not even that suspicious there. But so far, that's in one round twice where he did happen to line up with someone, but nothing happened. Going back to our whole statement of, I think, in a match, maybe 2 or 3 times a lobby you'll see that. They know where he is and everyone runs out on him. Why did it swing down to the head when Ash was downed? I can go back and check that. I didn't notice that. I think that might have been him crouching. So the claim is that as Ash went down, his aim changed with her. I don't think that was him having his aim change when she gets downed. I think that was him realizing that the vending machine is in the way, and he's like, I don't know, panic aim. Because like here, so Ash gets downed, he's still aiming high up. He realizes the vending machine's in the way, and then he's like, and then isn't sure where to aim. So I think that was like a panic flick. Without really, like, it didn't really do anything. I see what you mean, but I don't think that was anything. Ooh, Ella. Every new player's favorite operator. A girl wearing tights and a gun that goes a panic flick of what? Like, I'd say it's pretty common, especially for the lower players. Again, after watching so many match replays, I feel like I've noticed the trend is like newer players, if they are expecting one thing and then what they see does not meet their expectations, they like panic and they like move their aim. They're like what do I do? So I would assume in that case he was aiming, expecting to see the doorway and see someone, and then when he realized that nothing is there, he's like, what do I do? And then, you know, you panic, you move. It happens a lot. But then that does make the argument of like, if he is, like, you know, we're saying it's because he's a new player, how is he frying a lot of like champs and diamonds and stuff? I'd say like, I don't know. Here, this is much more what I would expect for a normal, like newer player in Siege who has FPS experience. Is sometimes they'll play aggressive, they'll whiff because they're not used to the aiming and stuff in Siege. But then like when we looked at Oregon, he didn't look anything like this. Like I can't even think if there, I don't remember there ever being a single round where he had like really bad aim like this. But Border did come first, so maybe he was warming up, you know? You can give him that excuse. Bro, these guys are taking all of our strats. They took the Blitz Armory Rush. 100% we came up with that on our own. No one ever influenced us. And now they're taking Evan and Kit's Goy Rooney, where you put an Aruni on a barricade that has a Goyo on it. It does take a lot to be a trendsetter like us. Interesting barbed wire. Only because very rarely do people actually push that hallway unless it comes down to like, you know, you don't really have any options. Also, is this the actual Renton? Renton 2895? The Cav and Blitz main? It is him? Oh. I'll never forget one of the events I went to. One of the Wi-Fi passwords was Renton drop from that famous gotcha clip where he says, he's like, Renton drop on Old Oregon. I'd say that round was a whole lot of nothing. They all try to push in one way and then just get punished. Like here, he's aiming right over at him, but then he realizes that he's on a boost angle and he flicks up. So I wouldn't say anything crazy there in this match. I think, what was it though? 3 instances total of him happening to line up with someone through a wall, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm old now, so my memory is not what it used to be. Actually, wait. Before we get into next match, I'll get chat to answer the question again. After the second match, do you think he's cheating or not cheating? I would say the Border match, in my opinion, was much more normal. Still some instances of lining people up, but nothing crazy. Is I don't know an option? Yeah, you can say I don't know. If you really don't know. A lot of people still saying cheating. Some people saying that he's toggling. Now, we can do our due diligence, do a little bit of research. You know, would there be reason for him to be worse in this map than compared to Oregon? Modern Warzone, as someone who is terrible, there are too many coincidences happening in a short span of time for me to think he's legit. So I'll use you as an example. Modern Warzone, you're obviously more of a COD creator. You've been playing Siege for a while, I know that, but even you admit, like, you know, harder for you to learn the game and harder for you to be good at the game versus, in this case, a Valorant creator who picked up the game and looks like someone who's been playing for thousands of hours. So I know that's a lot of examples people have been using as other creators like Shroud, who came into Siege and didn't look anything like that, even though he is considered to be one of the best FPS players of all time. That is an argument a lot of people use. Okay. Let's look at how many times has he played Border in his life. So that was the second time other than the Jinxie 1v1 that he played Border, which would make sense why he looks a lot more lost, didn't do as well. He hasn't played the map as much. So we look at Border twice, and then what was the other map? Oregon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I know he played it in the 1v1s as well. So he's played Oregon a lot more, so he would know the map a lot more. Border, he has barely played it. And we've already talked about this, but I'll talk about it again because I see a few people in chat saying it. There keeps being this, like, I know people say we have conspiracy theories for how he's playing, blah, blah, blah. I'd still say this is a much larger conspiracy theory, is that people keep being like, he's on a Smurf and he has thousands of hours. Like, he knows the game so well. but he's just pretending not to know it. I'm like, I know people say content is scripted. Content creators do a lot of scripted things. Obviously, that happens. Imagine that the creator is probably putting in minimum like 4 or 5 hours every single day offline to learn and practice a game just to stream it and look lost. Makes zero sense. Like, I truly don't know what you would stand to gain other than, I guess, if this exact whole situation played out exactly how it has been. But, like, hate to break it to you guys, content isn't that planned. People usually, you know, they'll have a script. They'll be like, oh, in this 1v1, let me win, and then I'll let you win in the next one, blah, blah, blah. The conspiracy theory that he's somehow dedicating hundreds of hours off stream to be a really good player just to fake it all on stream just doesn't make like any sense. Because I feel like unless this exact situation played out, in most cases, you would be way better off as a creator to play the game brand new, and like he's already playing with Jinxie and stuff, and just be like, I'm new, like teach me the game, and having Jinxie teach him the game. That would be way better for content and way better for everyone than to fake being new. It just, the conspiracy theories are crazy. All right, let's watch match number 3. I did think Kudos was memeing a little bit when he said that he's a DMR crutch, but he really does play a lot of DMR. He's now swapped to Buck, but I think in all those matches we played, I think more than 50% of the time he was on a DMR. I don't blame him. If I were a new player, I'd probably only play DMRs as well. So right off the bat, one thing I'll mention that I think a lot of people will say is pretty different in this match compared to other matches. In a lot of the other matches he played, he would jiggle peek a lot. He would pre-fire. And then here he just looks like he's... This is like what an actual brand new player looks like when they like oh shit, like a window. And then they just do this slow peek and they just kind of stare. Because for a lot of newer players, you know, you stare, you're like, okay, what am I looking at? What am I processing? Like, okay, it's a window. There's a potential angle there. They opened it. They could have been spawn peeking. Maybe someone might come back, blah, blah. You're processing all that stuff. But then when you look at the other maps, it was just like, no processing, just boom, 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 boom. Again, where the inconsistencies come from. I know people will say, well, he's a Valorant champ or whatever. Like, he's not going to play like that. He's so good. Again, no matter what game you come from, Siege is incredibly complex and really hard to learn. Also, tell a little story while we watch what's about to happen. I even remember back in the day when Shroud got into Siege, I used to watch Shroud a lot, like way back in the day. And I would watch him playing Siege as he was trying to get into it. And like, Shroud, obviously, crazy, like, gifted mechanically. Insane aim. And he would have so many clips where he would just, like, absolutely fry someone, just purely based off of, like, a reaction flick as someone's pushing him. But if he wasn't getting the kills, he would always look so lost. He'd be like, I don't know where I am, what I'm doing, like, where am I going? How do I get there? People would be like, oh, over, like, in this room. He's like, I don't know what that is. So, like, that's a much more standard, I guess, approach as a really good player coming into the game, is having really good aim, but being very lost otherwise. I would say I don't really see that too much here. And then to, I guess, play devil's advocate for both sides, that is where a lot of people get the suspicions from, because they're like, well, if he doesn't look lost, it probably means he has walls, because if you're not worried about stuff, like, you're not going to look as lost. Looking lost usually comes from being worried that someone could be somewhere and you have no idea. We also did see in the last round, it was like the most minuscule amount. He did happen to line someone up, but I don't think that was even like worth that much of mentioning. Of course, I see something here in the replay bugs out. So chat's talking about what I mentioned. I don't think what he did in the last round was that crazy. We can go back if you guys want to see it, but Again, this is a much more normal new player approach where he peeked and he's like, oh shit, right, the windows. I forgot about the windows. Because again, that's how you learn the map. You're like, you see it the first time, you try to learn, and then each time you push there, you remember. I saw here, I think when he pushes in this time, he peeks and he happens to be aiming right at the Aruni, which, you know, a little weird that he's like aiming right at her, and then as he peeks the door, he flicks to the left. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but you could argue that it's because he doesn't know exactly where the door is. So he was aiming there, thinking the door is closer, and then he's like, oh shit, it's over here, and then he flicks to the left. Also, I don't know what his sensitivity is, but holy shit, when he drones, it makes me feel nauseous. He's just like spinning 360s nonstop. I don't know if it's just the replay file, because the replay file can be a little bit buggy like that, but it does feel nauseating. I know the people who think Mooda's cheating will eat this up right here. So he drones, he sees that Kaid is pushing in through the rotate hole into bakery. His drone dies, so he starts pre-firing. You might have seen Kaid there for like half a second. Or no, that would have been even less because we're on 0.5 speed. But then when he swings again, he keeps shooting right at where the Aruni is through the wall. Like he's aiming basically on her head, shooting at her head. But the Kaid is obviously to the right, and then Kaid kills him. So, I'm sure a lot of people look at that and be like, bro, he's shooting at Aruni through a wall. Yeah, you're not wrong. He is. And then, of course, there's always the defense of common pre-fires, you know. That is a very common spot a lot of people sit at, and a lot of people will pre-fire. But, seeing as how he doesn't even know about the third floor windows over here, and he keeps forgetting about them every time he spawns, I'm going to go on a limb here and say that this would not be a common pre-fire for him to know. Just throwing that out there. Chat did say that in the ending of this round, they saw 2 instances of him lining up people through walls. I only saw 1, but I was telling the story. He does do it here. I did notice this, but I didn't find it that suspicious. I was like, if he's planning on pushing the door, you know, he'd aim towards the door if you know the door is here, but he does aim right at Scopos and then move away from him. But if you play that at normal speed, that was like, you know, half a second to a second. Nothing crazy. He does aim at the body there, but I would assume coincidental. He panic, gets on his drone, isn't sure what to do. You guys can take that for what you will. I know there's a lot of discussion in chat right now about pre-firing. So this is where I have very little expertise, so it's up to, you know, the community to make the decision there. Apparently in Valorant, pre-firing, you pre-fire everything. That's what I keep seeing people say. They're like, Valorant would teach them this. Like, you pre-fire every single thing that you see, every angle. I don't know how true that is, because I don't play Valorant. But if it is true, then that would make sense why he pre-fires a lot. Because if you learn that in Valorant, you're going to pre-fire everything you see in like any instance on Siege. But then we also see stuff like that where like he looked down Skylight, he didn't pre-fire anything. So part of me is like, you know, if these behaviors are expected to be something he's learned and to be consistent, he should be doing it consistently. But he doesn't. Oof. Not a good Hibana. You can't get through that. mean, he does hop on drones a lot, but then he never actually, like, uses them. He just, like, hop on them and then do nothing. Here, he does aim at the warden through the wall, but you could assume that it's because he forgot how far to the corner the breach would be. Like, he aims right at warden's crotch, and then he moves over to the right. And then dies. I'd say that looked more, you know, what you'd expect. Because as a newer player, you would see that, or like you would go to peek that and you'd forget because, you know, it's Siege. Siege has destruction, different destruction than any other game. You would normally forget and be like, oh, where exactly is the breach hole? What angle would he be holding? And there's a lot to remember in process. You can always scan the angle and aim at the end of the hole, not the wall itself, then overcorrect. You can, 100%. But the mistake he made there at the end of the round is what you'd expect, again, more from a newer player, because the movement shouldn't be, you know, as good as a experienced player where you'll, like, do a small peek, see the angle, and then wide swing after. So that mistaken movement is what exactly you'd expect, where he overswung, wasn't sure where he was looking at, aimed at the wrong part, and then died. That's what he should be consistently doing as a newer player. But instead, I would argue that that has happened much less than him just, you know, seeming to know where someone is. Because I would say anyone under sub 100 hours, what he did in that round should be like 90% of your interactions. But instead, it's more like, you know, 10 to 20%. This is a killer example of gaming scene in 2026. Lots of cheaters and you can't tell who is and isn't anymore. I mean, one of the biggest issues is, especially in Siege, and why people are so, you know, overall suspicious, is because cheats in Siege have gotten to a new level. I'm sure every game has this, but obviously I can only speak for Siege, where they are actively doing things in the cheating scene, like making it where if you have aimbot, it will automatically add shake so that it looks like you're struggling to control your gun, and so that it doesn't get flagged as blatant aimbot, because blatant aimbot, you'll aim right at someone and the gun won't move, it'll just stay locked on. Like, they're adding all of these variations to make it much harder to detect. Not to mention that AI has been a big problem in both, like, cheating in Siege, but also every other game. Is like, AI cheats are now just everywhere, and they can adapt so quickly to anti-cheat, which is just frustrating for anyone. Also, did I say that right? Is default cam still up when he got that kill? There's no way. Hibana. Shoot the default cam. I know we've only seen one defense on this map. I could be wrong. I feel like that's the first time he's ever been on cameras on defense. Other than when he's dead, obviously. He's just like my teammates. We've also been watching now for like an hour and 15 minutes, so who the fuck remembers? I think that second ping is him. So someone pings above him. They have the cocktail, like, third floor camera still up. He pings. And then Mooda pings. So someone, or Kane, calls that someone's above. And they call with a ping that someone's, like, right on that spot. What I'm learning from this enemy team is they are not shooting, like, any default cams at all. Why can't I get these enemies in ranked? Actually, no, you know what? We would get these enemies, but then our teammates would red ping on the camera, and then they would destroy the camera. Guaranteed. So, we know that the Ashe jumped over the red balcony and shot to cover the sound of her dropping. That is a very common champ level play, very common strat that a lot of pros run to cover all sound. I would assume he shouldn't know this. Again, he only has 60 hours. He probably shouldn't be aware of using the gunshot to mask your vault. And I don't think he was, because it looked like he was still aiming at the bottom of red, waiting for him to peek. And then when he heard Ashe walking, that's when he swung and then whiffed. That was a reaction shot. Pretty normal. Nothing there. Also, one point in his favor that I think a lot of people are forgetting about is that at the end of the day, a lot of people, if they got into Siege and they were immediately queuing with a champ level stack, would probably learn a lot very, very quickly. Because obviously most people who play the game for the first time get into like silver or bronze, then they work their way up and they learn very slowly. So Mooda does have the unique opportunity here to be learning a lot from this team. Now, I haven't looked at the stream VODs. I don't know if they're like educating him and being like, hey, you should do this. Hey, this is an angle. Hey, do this. If they aren't telling him anything, I'm like, how is he learning all this without anyone educating him? Or at least learning it that quickly. But I truly don't know. I don't know. I don't know if they're teaching him or if they're just playing to play and he's just trying to pick up what he can. Not sure. So I remember it was Evan who told us that we should be playing ranked with Kit. Kit not being the greatest in our group. And he's like, the best way for Kit to learn is to play in champ. And then we play ranked champ and Kit fucking gets destroyed and hates it. But we're also not educating him. Like, the average newer player should obviously get absolutely destroyed in champ level ranked. His sense 100% gives me motion sickness. Yeah, it is a little high. Which would be surprising, because I think in Valorant, as well as almost any other FPS, people tend to play on super low sense. For him to be on such a high sense is crazy. So from this position, the sound should be roughly the same regardless of its Nomad or Ashe moving, because as you move in here, the sound just comes through the doorway and it's straight ahead. It should be fairly similar. He also would be dealing with tinnitus from the flashbang. Even though he didn't get flashed, it still landed close to him, so I think that should be affecting his ears. But then as Ashe is pushing up, he aims down, kills her. I mean, I'd say for this entire match, I feel like that's the first instance I've seen of him being pretty suspicious. This also being a little bit suspicious that he's ready for that. He also was ready for the... I was going to say, this seems like such a dumb position to play if you know the game because you can get shot from Skylight. But even though he gets the kill, he then immediately he turns around and he's aiming at the Skylight. Like, he's ready for that. But that's it for this match. So for him to know, I don't know, for him to know that Skylight angle from Cigar and be ready for someone to be sitting up there waiting for him just seems so odd when you go back and you're like, oh yeah, when he spawned over here, he didn't know that there were windows here and he was like panicking on what to do. But then he knows this much less commonly known angle. Inconsistent. Let's find out how much he's played Cafe. That was his 4th time ever playing it that match. He played it 3 times, didn't do insanely well in any of them. Played again, went even, played again, went positive by 1. Makes sense that he seemed kind of confused on some parts. Makes less sense that he was very knowledgeable in other parts. Now, obviously, everyone learns different parts of Siege at different rates, but yeah, not knowing the window spawn peak, but knowing the skylight angle onto CS is a little crazy. All right, we'll get chat's opinion for the 3rd match. Do you still think he's cheating, or do you think he's not cheating? Or, I don't know, in case people would want to be more in the middle. I have to allow that message from Skittles. But, so most of the chat thinks he's still cheating. I would say after watching all the matches, I think everything he did in these matches is substantially more suspicious than anything he did in the 1v1s. So similar to what Fett said in his tweet, the 1v1s, you know, you can write it off because it's a 1v1. Who cares? No one really expects much there. But the way he played in ranked is just so all over the place. And to be fair, in his defense, newer players will be all over the place. Newer players won't be consistent. They won't do the same thing over and over again because they're still learning. But the consistency issues I had is sometimes he knows exactly where everyone is, fries them, and knows every normal common angle that, you know, us veterans know. But then when it's not like that, he looks like he's completely lost. He does not know any of the map layout, and he has lots of instances of lining up people through walls and then aiming away from them. It's still kind of up in the air. I would personally say that if you were to show me these matches, you didn't tell me who it was, you just said, are they cheating or not? Especially watching the Oregon match, especially looking at his level, looking at his time played and everything, I'd say I would assume he's cheating. And I would assume that he just wasn't sure how to hide it half the time. And I think, again, most content creators, if you showed them that without telling them it was Mooda, I think 99% of them would all say they're cheating. Like, creators love to just say this person's cheating 100% blah, blah, with almost no evidence. But then when it's a case of a content creator where they are hoping to probably collaborate with them and gain some of their viewership, they're much more likely to give some leniency and just be like, nah, he can't be cheating. Now, the question remains, if he were cheating, how is he cheating? Based on what I've seen, I would assume that the type of cheat he's using is basic walls, or there's also another cheat, which I've heard about. I don't know what level it exists in Siege, but I've heard about it in other games like Counter-Strike, where when you aim down sight, it'll like lock on to people or like move your aim towards them. So you wouldn't have walls in the sense that you see like, you know, the outline, the box, whatever. It would be like you just spam right click and then it'll like move you towards the person. And then you're like, okay, so someone's over here. That'd be like a more subtle cheat. That would be something that wouldn't be popping up on like a monitor cam, for example, if you were to use that. I would, after all this, again, lean more on the side that he probably has something, just based off how inconsistent he is, the level of play he's playing at with very few hours. It just doesn't really add up. I don't think a PC check would be necessary because, again, they keep warning him ahead of time. They're like, we want to do a PC check on Thursday. Gives him plenty of time if he were cheating to delete everything, wipe his windows, and then be like, oh, got nothing on there. So I don't think a PC check will do anything. I think if you would truly want to clear his name and prove that he is just insanely good at Siege with so few hours, the only possible way to do that and to make people stop assuming he's cheating is to play ranked in champ level lobbies with a monitor cam and to play at this level that he was playing at consistently. Because like if he put on a monitor cam, played in ranked, and he shit the bed, then it's obvious. Now if he had the like what we called or chat was calling like the soft aim cheats, monitor cam wouldn't catch that. He could still be cheating, but it'd be way less likely and way harder to like pull off without it seeming obvious, you know? Obviously, he does have a lot to gain at this point where he could refuse to do a monitor cam and still play ranked and be like, well, I'm not giving into the, demands or whatever that people want, and then that'll just, get him more viewers as people continue to speculate. But I don't know, if it were me, I'd be like, yeah, I'll put on a monitor cam, show you that I'm not cheating, prove that I'm just fucking insane at this game. I think you'd have a lot more to gain by proving that you're just naturally insanely good at an incredibly complex game than you would to refuse to cooperate. One final look at his stats before we go, because again, I do think any content creator who would go up against this, like level 93, only played 68 matches, but is already Emerald 2 with a 1.4 KD and a 68% win rate. Like, I know for a fact, because I've had this before, if Skittles went up against this guy, he would report him to me and be like, yo, can you get this guy banned for me? I'd be like, no, I can't do that because I wasn't in the match. But I know for a fact creators would report someone like this at that low of a level and be like, no, there's no way they'd beat me in champ. But again, because he's a creator, they're willing to give him a lot more leniency and just assume the best.